In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. The refinement and selection of Saadi's Gulistan. From hand and tongue, who can fulfill the thanks he deserves? The servant should bring forth excuses for their shortcomings in the divine court of the Almighty. For no one can genuinely render the service worthy of His Majesty. The boundless reign of His mercy has reached everyone, and the table of His endless bounty is spread everywhere. O generous one, who provides sustenance from the hidden treasure both to the pious and the sinner. How could you deprive your friends when you look with such favor even upon your enemies? The clouds, the wind, the moon, the sun, and the celestial spheres are all at work, so you may gain a morsel of bread and eat it without heedlessness. They are all wandering and obeying for your sake. It is not just for you to be disobedient. Behold the grace and kindness of the Lord. The servant sins, and he feels shame. Lovers perish for their beloved, and the slain do not raise their voices. O morning bird, learn love from the moth, for the burned one gave its life and raised no complaint. These claimants in search of him are ignorant, for those who have truly found him do not return to tell. One day I received a sweet-smelling flower in the bathhouse, handed to me by an esteemed master. I asked, "Are you musk or ambergris? For I am intoxicated by your enchanting fragrance." The flower replied, "I am but a humble flower, yet I spent some time in the company of roses. Their excellence influenced me, or else I am merely what you see. With every breath of life, a part of time departs. When I reflect upon it, not much remains. O you who have reached 50 years but are still in slumber, you may seize these last 5 days of life. Shame on the one who leaves without accomplishment." The drum of departure, a metaphor for the inevitability of death, has sounded. They have not prepared their baggage, a symbol for the unfulfilled tasks and unachieved goals in life. Every newcomer builds a new edifice and moves on, leaving the dwelling for others to inhabit. Another comes with similar ambitions, but none ever completes their construction. An unreliable friend is not worth your friendship. This treacherous one deserves no loyalty. Whether good or bad, death is inevitable. Blessed is the one who carries the banner of goodness. Send provisions of joy to your grave, for none will bring from the future what you fail to send ahead. Life is like snow under the summer sun, brief, yet the master still deceives himself. O poor soul wandering the market, I fear you may return with nothing in hand. Speak now while speech is possible. Say it, brother, with kindness and delight. For when the messenger of death arrives, you will be compelled to silence by necessity. O wise one, what is the tongue in your mouth? The key to the treasure of skilled words. When the door is locked, how can anyone distinguish the gem merchant from the peddler? Although silence is considered wisdom, in moments of necessity, it is better to speak thoughtfully. Two things confound the mind: remaining silent when it is time to speak, and speaking when it is time to be silent. They asked Hormuz, "What fault did you find in your father's ministers that you ordered their imprisonment?" He replied, "I found no specific fault, but I noticed that they did not hold me in the same awe and respect they had for my father, nor did they trust me entirely. I feared that out of concern for their safety, they might plot against me. So I followed the advice of the wise, who said, 'Fear not the enemy who openly threatens, but beware of the friend who hides his resentment.' The prudent king removes all causes of suspicion from his reign and cuts off any root of treason from his domain. For the sword of an enemy may be seen and avoided, but a traitor's arrow pierces when one least expects it. A story is told of an unjust king who used to oppress the people of his kingdom. One of his ministers, a wise man, advised him, 'Beware, O king. Oppression shortens the life of governments. If the foundation of a palace is laid with bricks of injustice, that palace will not remain standing.' The king laughed, saying, 'You are a dreamer, and your words are without proof.' Not long after, the oppressed people united against him, and he lost his throne. The wise man then remarked, 'When a cruel monarch is overthrown, he becomes a lesson for others to own.' A philosopher was asked, 'What is the noblest attribute of a human being?' He replied, 'To be grateful when given blessings, to be patient when facing trials, and to forgive when wronged.' The minister pardoned the man instead, defying the king's order. When the king asked why he disobeyed the command, the minister's response was courageous and inspiring. 'O king, forgiveness is better than revenge, for revenge merely reflects power, while forgiveness displays nobility.' The king admired this wisdom and said, Indeed, forgiveness is the mark of the great. The thorn of enmity is best removed with the hand of kindness. One of the Sufis, known for their spiritual wisdom, said, "The Sufi analogy is a powerful reminder that one should not rely on the kindness of those who are inherently cruel, as their actions will not change their nature. This resembles how rain falling on salty land does not make it sweet." A scholar said, "The tongue of a wise person is behind their heart, while the tongue of a fool is ahead of their mind. Speak not without reflection, for words once spoken cannot be undone." A poet said, "If your speech is like gold, weigh it carefully before giving it away, for what you say may shine or tarnish, depending on the way." A young prince asked a sage, "What is the most important virtue for a ruler?" A young man once asked a wise philosopher, "How can I find peace in my heart?" The philosopher replied, "By seeking knowledge with humility, practicing kindness with sincerity, and remembering that peace begins within." A king once asked his counselor, "What is the most valuable thing a king can possess?" The counselor answered, "To have wise ministers and loyal subjects, for their wisdom and loyalty are the foundation of a stable reign." A famous poet once said, "Greatness is not in power or wealth, but in the ability to serve others and to create peace among men." A merchant came to a wise sage and asked, "How can I become successful in my trade?" The sage replied, "True success lies not in profits alone, but in honest dealings and fair exchanges." A scholar once said, "Learning is a journey, not a destination. To learn is to grow is to evolve, and to evolve is to live fully." A ruler once declared to his people, "Trust in me, and I will lead you to prosperity." One of his advisors warned him, "Beware, O king, that you do not place all your trust in your own judgment, for even the wisest ruler may falter." A young man sought advice from a wise elder. "How can I be successful in life?" The elder answered, "Success is found in perseverance and in your ability to learn from failure. Remember, the road to success is paved with resilience." A sage once said, "True happiness is not in external wealth or status, but in a heart at peace with itself and a mind free of worry." A traveler asked a wise hermit, "What is the most valuable thing to carry on your journey?" The hermit replied, "Knowledge, for it will guide you when all else fails." A king once said to his minister, "Tell me, what is the most important thing I should seek in life?" The minister replied, "Seek truth, for in truth lies wisdom, and in wisdom lies the key to good governance." A man asked a philosopher, "How can I make the most of my life?" The philosopher responded, "By living with integrity, serving others selflessly, and always striving to be the best version of yourself." A poet once wrote, "Life is a fleeting moment, but the impact of kindness lasts forever." A wise elder told his young disciple, "Do not fear mistakes, for they are the stepping stones to greatness." The truly wise person is one who learns from their errors. A king was once troubled by unrest in his kingdom. He asked his advisor, "What should I do to restore peace?" The advisor replied, "Rule with justice, speak with kindness, and act with integrity. Peace follows those who act with honor." I heard a fool say, "You ruined the peasant's house to make the sultan's treasury flourish," unaware of what the wise have said. Whoever harms God's creation to gain favor with people, God will place those same people in charge of him, and they will bring misery upon his life. The animals proclaim that the lion is the king of beasts, while the lowest animals are the donkey and the ox, and by agreement, the donkey, the pack animal, is more valuable than the lion. A donkey, though untidy, is dear because it carries the load, while the ox and donkey, both beasts of burden, are better than humans who cause harm to others. The story goes on about a foolish minister. The king realized some of the minister's wicked ways through torture and punishment. But a wise man once said, "The king's favor cannot be gained unless his subjects are treated kindly." If you wish for God to be merciful to you, be kind to God's creation. Seeing the minister in his ruined state, a wronged man passed by and remarked, "He who has the strength of position does not always deserve the kingship." You may swallow a bone, but it will cause you pain when it is lodged in your stomach. An unjust ruler never escapes his doom. His curse endures. There is a tale about someone who threw a stone at a righteous man, and the stone remained in place until the king's anger struck, and he was cast into the pit. The wrongdoer, a beggar, hit the stone on the way out. The beggar explained, "I am the one who was struck by this stone, and now, in revenge, it struck me again. Even if you cannot defeat the lion, don't engage it in battle. If you must fight with the wicked, you'll harm yourself." Then a king struck with illness sought a cure. His advisors were perplexed, but a wise man suggested his actions caused the disease. The king realized that his fate was sealed, and his cure lay in repentance for the harm he had caused. In the story of a merchant who bought firewood from beggars at a low price and sold it at a high cost to the rich, a wise man advised, "Do not oppress those weaker than you, for your strength will not last, and eventually you will pay the price." The merchant ignored the advice, and soon after, his storehouse caught fire, burning everything. There is also the story of a wrestler who learned all the techniques but kept one technique hidden. He failed to use the method in a contest with his teacher and was defeated. The teacher, however, explained that the student had been too proud, and his lesson was to respect those who have taught him. In another story, a beggar is approached by a king who is surprised when the beggar does not acknowledge him. The beggar explained, "The king expects respect from those who rely on him. The subjects do not serve the king for his benefit, but for their own survival." And finally, in the story of a deceitful poet who entered the city pretending to have completed the pilgrimage, he was eventually exposed for his lies. His punishment came swiftly, but before it could be enacted, he pleaded, "If my words are false, I deserve any punishment you decree, but if they are true, then let me go." The king laughed and granted him his wish. One of the kings passed by a hermit sitting in a desert. The hermit, deep in contemplation, did not look up nor pay attention. Feeling the weight of his royal authority, the king was upset and said, "These cloaked ones resemble animals and lack the dignity of humans." The minister nearby said, "O young man, the king of the earth passed by you. Why did you not serve him and fulfill the requirements of respect?" The hermit, with profound wisdom, replied, "Tell the king that one should expect service from those who expect blessings from you. And remember, kings are meant to protect their people, not the other way around. It is not for the shepherd to tend to the cows, but for the cows to serve the shepherd." The king said, "The hermit's words are steadfast." He asked, "What do you wish for?" The hermit, standing firm in his beliefs, replied, "I ask that you no longer burden me." The king, respecting his independence, responded, "You may go." The hermit, with a sense of empowerment, said, "Now that your blessings are in hand, know that power and kingdom pass from one hand to another." One of the ministers went to the Egyptian scholar Dualnun seeking wisdom, saying, "I am preoccupied with the king's service day and night, hoping for his favor and fearing his punishment." Dualnun cried, "If I had served God Almighty as you serve the king, I would have been among the king's righteous companions." A king ordered the execution of an innocent person. Another said, "O king, because of your anger toward me, do not seek to harm me. This punishment will pass in a moment, but the guilt will remain with you forever. Time passes like the wind across the desert, and joy, sorrow, beauty, and ugliness will pass. The oppressor thought he harmed us, but the burden of his cruelty remains with him." This advice was valuable to the king, who pardoned the innocent person. The ministers of Anushirvan were discussing an important matter regarding the kingdom, each offering their opinion. The king pondered it as well. The opinion of Buzarjmer, his advisor, was chosen. The ministers secretly asked, "What more did you see in the king's decision over the views of so many wise men?" Buzarjmer replied, "The king's decision is always best, for if it turns out wrong, following the king's orders protects me from harm. Disagreeing with the king leads to one's destruction. If the king says it is night, it is better to accept it, as it is the world's way." A trickster, claiming to be an elevated man, arrived with the pilgrimage caravan and recited poetry. The king, impressed, rewarded him generously. One of the king's attendants, who had just returned from a sea journey, said, "I saw him in Basra during the Feast of Sacrifice. How could he be a pilgrim?" Another said, "His father was a Christian in Malaysia. How could he be a descendant of Fatima?" They realized his deceit, and the king ordered his punishment. He pleaded, "O king, let me speak one more truth in your service. If I speak falsely, punish me as you wish." The king said, "Speak. What is it?" The trickster said, "If a poor man brings you milk, it may be water with a little yogurt. If you hear a servant speak falsely, forgive him. Many wise men speak lies." The king laughed and said, "That is the truest thing you have ever said." He ordered that the trickster's desires be fulfilled. One of the ministers was known for showing mercy to the underprivileged and mediating between the people and the king during hardship. Eventually, he fell into disfavor with the king. His release came only after efforts to win the king's forgiveness. A wise man, learning this, remarked, "If you want to win the hearts of friends, sell the garden of your father's estate. Do good to those who think ill of you." A young prince came to his father, Harun al-Rashid, angry that a nobleman's son had insulted him. The king's council debated the punishment. Some suggested execution, others mutilation, and others exiled. Harun said, "My son, kindness is the greatest virtue. If you can't forgive, at least don't respond with insults. Let the wrongdoer's actions not be compounded by yours." When the great man of piety was asked about a certain ascetic, he responded with humility, saying, "I see no fault in his outward appearance, and I do not know his inner state." His modesty in not passing judgment on the ascetic's inner state is a lesson in humility for us all. Whoever you see wearing the cloak of piety, think of him as a virtuous man and imagine him as a good person. But do not meddle in what may lie hidden within him. What is the role of the watchman inside the house? It is said that Abdul Qadir al-Gilani was seen at the Kaaba praying, "O Lord, forgive me, and if I truly deserve punishment, resurrect me blind on the day of judgment, so I am not ashamed in front of the righteous." A thief entered the house of a pious man. After searching thoroughly and finding nothing, the thief grew disheartened. The righteous man learned of it and placed a rug upon which he had been sleeping along the path to cause pain so that he might not be deprived of divine mercy. It is said that men on the path of God never caused their enemies' hearts to be weighed down. Rare is the person who attains this station while being at odds with their friends. True unity in the world of piety lies in the oneness of purpose, both outwardly and inwardly. When the heart finds no rest, it yearns for inner peace. It is in these moments that we pray, "O God, make me like those who have attained true peace." Some paths and challenges in life only bring clarity when understood from a place of inner peace. I was an ascetic in my youth, spending nights awake in devotion and prayer. One night, while seated beside my father, may God bless him, I said, "None of those gathered here seem able to rise for 2 rakas of prayer. They are so lost in their slumber, it seems as though they are not merely asleep, but dead." My father replied, "Even the soul of a father, if it were to rest, would be better than falling into the skin of others." When asked what he learned from the wise, a scholar responded, "I learned from the foolish, for anything I saw in them that was unworthy, I avoided." This teaches us the value of discernment and the importance of learning from all experiences, even those we may initially perceive as unworthy. Another wise man was once praised in a gathering, and the people exaggerated his virtues. He raised his head and said, "I am that which I know." They spoke of a peacock's feathers that others admire, but it remained shy of its legs. It is said that one of the wise men had a vision of a king in paradise and a pious man in hell. He asked, "Why is this so? And why is the opposite believed by people?" The answer came, "The king is in paradise because of his love for the poor, while the pious man is in hell because of his closeness to kings." When a traveler was asked, "Why are you going barefoot and destitute?" he replied, "I do not have a camel to ride, nor do I serve a master. I have no worries and no concerns, just a breath of freedom with no chains." One day, as he walked through the desert, a wealthy man encountered him and said, "You are wandering aimlessly and will surely die." The man did not listen and continued. Eventually, he reached a place where death claimed him. There is no virtue in being overly consumed with the world's riches, for the soul's nourishment leads to true satisfaction. We may become trapped by the wealth of kings, but only the wisdom of those who understand life's journey will save us. One day, a king asked a pious man, "Do you remember anything about us?" The man replied, "Yes, whenever I forget God." A pious man once envisioned a king in heaven and an ascetic in hell. He asked, "What is the cause of this disparity?" The voice replied, "The king is in paradise for his kindness to the poor, while the ascetic is in hell for his pride and proximity to power." A merchant once said, "You may try to control the hearts of others, but the most foolish of men will always resist." The poet concluded, The heart's essence lies beyond mere material gain. The Dervish and the Gracious Man. A dervish, who had attained a high status, was known for his generous nature and wisdom. In his circle, those who were learned in eloquence and rhetoric would often share jokes and wit. Once, after wandering through the desert and being without food for a long time, the dervish was asked, "You must have something to say." The dervish, in his wisdom, replied, "I have no learning or eloquence like others, but accept from me a single verse." The dervish then recited, "In my hunger I lay before the table of bread, like the wise men at the bathhouse door." Everyone laughed and appreciated his wit, and the meal was brought forward. Witnessing the dervish's profound humility, the host said, "My friend, pause for a moment, for my servants have brought food for the hungry." The dervish's humility was truly inspiring. A disciple's dilemma. A disciple came to his elder and said, "What should I do, as the people constantly visit me, and my time is disturbed by their presence?" The elder, in his wisdom, responded, "Give to the poor what they ask for, and take from the rich what they offer. This will prevent them from returning to you." The criticism of scholars. A scholar said, "The sweet words of eloquent speakers have no effect on me because I do not see them practicing what they preach. They teach others to renounce the world while themselves hoarding wealth and grain." The elder replied, "The true scholar is not one who merely speaks, but one who acts upon their words. A scholar is not someone who just speaks, but who refrains from doing evil and applies their wisdom in their life." A king's request. A king, who had been told of the great wisdom of a holy man, ordered him to be brought before him. The sacred man came and sat before the king, who asked, "What is the meaning of true wealth?" The blessed man answered, "Wealth is not in the abundance of possessions, but in contentment and peace of mind. The one who has a heart filled with gratitude has greater wealth than any king." The king was astonished at his answer and said, "You are truly wise. The value of contentment." A man told a sage, "I am rich and have all that I need, yet I still feel incomplete. What is it that I am missing?" The sage replied, "You are missing the peace of a content heart. When you are content with what you have, you will feel that you are the richest person in the world. Seek not external wealth, but inner satisfaction." The wisdom of patience. A man came to the wise man and asked, "How can I find peace in this troubled world?" The sage replied, "Patience, my friend, is the key to peace. Do not rush, do not act out of impatience. When you are patient, the world will unfold before you, and you will find tranquility within." The man thanked him, and his heart was at ease. The love of knowledge. A student once asked his teacher, "What is the most valuable thing in life?" The teacher replied, "Knowledge is the most precious gift one can have, for it leads to understanding and wisdom. Seek knowledge with humility, and it will guide you to the truth." The meaning of true friendship. A man asked his friend, "What does true friendship mean?" His friend answered, "True friendship is not based on the exchange of gifts or favors, but on mutual respect and support. A true friend is one who stands by you in times of hardship and rejoices with you in times of happiness." The way of the wise. A wise man was asked, "What is the secret to living a fulfilling life?" He responded, "Live with compassion, for compassion opens the heart to wisdom. Practice humility, for humility allows you to learn. Embrace patience, for patience gives you the strength to overcome life's challenges." The power of self-reflection. A young man asked a sage, "How can I find true happiness?" The sage replied, "True happiness comes from self-reflection. When you know yourself and understand your desires and shortcomings, you will find peace within yourself. Look inward, for that is where true happiness lies." The foolishness of pride. A man filled with pride swaggered through the streets, looking down on others. An elder saw him, saying, "Pride is a fool's companion. It closes your eyes to your own faults and prevents you from seeing the truth in others. Let go of pride, for humility is the path to wisdom." The gift of generosity. A wealthy man who had amassed great riches asked a sage, "What is the greatest treasure in the world?" The sage replied, "Generosity is the greatest treasure. When you give, without expecting anything in return, you will find that you have gained more than you could ever possess."